and welcome back to Fat Pack Magic. The cube is charged up and fired off, and you know what that means. It's time for some awesome vintage cube gameplay. So on the right we've got Bobby, who's drafted a mono black deck that you've probably seen in the previous video. And on the left we've got Devyn running a red deck wins. His deck is completely low to the curve, and they're taking their first mulligan. Devyn's mulled down to 6 and he's kept his hand, but Bobby has thrown his back and he's going down to 5. So let's take a look at what Bobby's going to decide on his 5 cards. Man, that's going to be really rough, but Bobby needs a critical mass of removal and just solid value. And let's hope he gets it. So here we are, we're looking at his 5, and not a bad start. He's got a Mox, he's got some removal. He can kind of get there, but it looks like he's going to pitch back the Phyrexian Arena, and he's going to tuck the Buried Alive underneath as well. So here we go, we're starting off, and Devyn is going, and he's going to start off with a Fire Drinker Satyr as Bobby draws for his turn. Now Bobby's got a lot of decisions to make. He's got removal, he's got a land to play, he's got a land to play, got a land to play, maybe? I guess Bobby's deciding on if he wants to play land. Oh, there we go! Bobby's played a land! We did it, guys! We got there, and he's passing the turn back. Bobby had a really difficult turn 1. He decided on whether or not he wants to play a land or not play a land, but I think he made the correct decision. Except for a Strip Mine is going to bring him down, and a Goblin Guide is going to follow up and reveal a land off the top of Bobby's library. Still, 2 life for a draw card is kind of a rough ratio against mono red. And there's a Liliana, the Last Hope. Again, Bobby is looking at his hand and doesn't look like he's got much to do. He can't play a second land this turn. He can play a Mox. And, you know, maybe go off with that Collective Brutality. But the question is what to discard. Does he want to discard more removal? Or does he discard maybe the Batterskull or the Liliana? The Batterskull is going to be really helpful as Bobby gets down to his 5th land. But that seems a far and away cry from here. He's looking at his hand, and Bobby's a very methodical player. He's deciding on whether or not he wants to play the Mox. Here we go. So he's played the Mox. Looks like he's going to fire off that Collective Brutality. I mean, a good he's going to have the Liliana Last Hope for next turn. So he can probably kill off the Fire Drinker Satyr with her +1 ability. So the only problem is, the unfortunate thing is killing off the Goblin Guide means that Bobby isn't going to be able to draw a land off the top next turn if it's on top. But he needs to keep his life total stable. So he's going to escalate it, discarding the Batterskull. He's going to discard an instant or sorcery from Devyn's hand, and the only one is a Firebolt. Now that's going to go to the yard, and Bobby is looking at the further cards, and he's taking a look at Robber of the Rich, which is one of the new cards that's been added for the Thrones of Eldraine League. A 2/2 Reach Haste that says if you have less cards in your hand than your opponent, then you reveal the top card, and you get to cast that this turn, or any turn that a rogue is attacked. So he drops down. Devyn has 2 cards in hand, Bobby has 3, so the top card is going to get removed. It looks like they're debating on whether or not Robber's ability triggers on attack or on damage, but it does trigger on attack. And Bobby asking, is it every turn? If the Robber of the Rich gets destroyed, can you still cast it? You can, actually. I had to look this up myself. But you can cast the card as long as a rogue has attacked that turn. It's a really weird ability, and I wouldn't think that it would stick around, but if you have Mutavault or something and you swing with that, it's a rogue, so you would be able to cast off of that. But still, a very niche ability and potentially very strong for the red deck wins deck. So they're confirming. Bobby looking it up on Gatherer, digging through his phone, closing the ad, checking the Gatherer, and yep, it's confirmed. It sticks around. So Bobby untaps. He's got to get some damage going. He's got to get some of these things off the board. And he starts off with Liliana, the Last Hope. And he's going to kill off that Fire Drain Crusader and maybe bait some damage from the Robber of the Rich to get him some life. But Devyn has drawn a Goblin Rabble Master. And it goes especially well with his Sulfuric Vortex in hand, essentially pinning down Bobby under so much damage and so many threats. Question is how he wants to play out this turn. Bobby only has 2 cards in hand, so for Robber to trigger, Devyn has to go down to 1 card, but that's not too bad of an issue. Devyn deciding on whether or not he wants to drop out that Sulfuric Vortex, or if he wants to play out the Rabble Master. The Rabble Master will be vulnerable to damage and threat removal, but it just might be worth it. And it looks like Devyn is going to play the Sulfuric Vortex and swing for 2 at Bobby's life total, bringing him down to 10 and exiling a Kitesail Freebooter from the top of Bobby's library. All these amazing draws just going away and bringing Bobby down to 8 life. Bobby has drawn another land. And it looks like that Ruinous Path is kind of stuck. Because if Bobby can't hold it, it's a sorcery speed removal spell. So he can't he can't plus the Liliana to keep the Robber at bay and not lose tempo. So he pluses on nothing and passes the turn back. And Devyn untaps, taking his first damage of the game, bringing him down to 18. And he reveals, here's the Rabble Master. Here it comes. And it's going to swing in, dealing 1 damage at Bobby with that invisible Goblin token. Bobby goes down to 5 and draws a land, and that is the game! And man, that Robber of the Rich being so powerful, nuking the top 2 cards off of Bobby's deck, which were Pack Rat and Kitesail Freebooter, which might have altered the state of the game, because Bobby would have been able to snag the Sulfuric Vortex or the Goblin Rabble Master with that Freebooter, plusing the Liliana, and keeping the Robber at an 0-1 that can't swing because Kitesail Freebooter has flying, not to mention the Pack Rat, which Bobby could have used to just dump out his empty lands and bring out an amazing board and start crashing back. But Devyn's got a lot of ammo to work with for his sideboard, and Bobby is taking a look at what he can produce as well. And, oh yeah, Pack Rat tokens. So, my Pack Rat tokens are actually Pack Rat cards, because it matters. You know, they actually have the converted mana cost and all that stuff. But Bobby is taking a look through his sideboard, and he doesn't have a lot. His deck is mono black, but Devyn is looking through, and it looks like of all the cards, he's pulled up Direfleet Daredevil as one of the cards he's not too excited about. And that's mainly because there's not a lot of advantage that he can get off of that card. So he's going to pull in Rekindling Phoenix. Bobby is not going to sideboard in anything. And I think the Rekindling Phoenix is pretty strong here, mainly because of Bobby's suite of removal is simply Destroy, and that Phoenix is going to be able to crash back in for 4 flying haste every turn that Bobby can't deal with it. So they're shuffling up, they're getting ready for game 2. And if I'm Bobby, I think what I really want from my hand is just early removal and early threats. The Kitesail Freebooter is perfect against Devyn's deck. Sure, it's going to eat a removal spell, it's going to eat some burn, but that's burn that's not going to go to Bobby's face. And for Devyn, probably just the same thing as last time, but Devyn's curve is so low to the ground, he's got so many 1-drops, he's got so many 2-drops, and haste is incredibly relevant in these matchups. So, we're taking a look at their hands, and Bobby's seems a little slow. he's got the reanimating creatures, but he doesn't have any tools to get him into the yard, which can be really dangerous. So Bobby is going to chuck it back. Devyn is going to keep his 7. And here we go again. So, I mean, Bobby has a lot of reanimator stuff, like Entomb, Buried Alive, Reanimate, Dance of the Dead, and Life and Death. So he could probably get the Magister of Worth into the yard and wipe the board clear, but still, unless he uses something like Reanimate or Dance of the Dead or Animate Dead, he's going to be taking a lot of damage off that. But this seems like a fairly slow hand as well. But it's got Library of Alexandria, and he's going to be pitching that back. Well, he's going to be pitching 1 card back. The question is this a good 6 for him? I mean, maybe tuck the Mind Twist, because he needs an on-curve set of draws. The Sign in Blood is going to be painful, but ultimately Bobby decides he's going to chuck it back, because if he doesn't draw a swamp within the next turn, he's going to be sitting there looking dumb without a play. So Bobby is shuffling back in and down to 5 both games. Devyn has an amazing cut ability, and it looks like he's going to do it one more time, spilling a few cards, but that's okay. So Bobby draws out your 7. And this looks like as good as it's going to get. I mean, he's going to be able to keep 5 of those. He needs land, so that's an automatic 2. The Liliana the Veil might be a little dead here, but it looks like he's going to be tucking back Mesmeric Fiend, and I kind of like the Kite Sail Freebooter here, but Bobby, he's gonna know exactly what he wants to do. And the Liliana the Veil is pretty good because he's going to be able to start pitching cards from Devyn's hand, and he'll be able to get back Devyn's best creatures with Dance of the Dead. But Devyn is coming crashing in, falls out, Bomat Curry right to your face, and here we go. Bobby plays his land for turn and passes. He's got Go for the Throat, so it's whatever's on Devyn's mind is going to be Bobby's next target. And Devyn's going to play a Mutavault and go into a Robber of the Rich. Here we go. Bobby says, wait, before attacks, let's go for that Robber's Throat. Bobby still takes 1, dragging him down to 18. But that Mutavault is incredibly dangerous there. However, Bobby has pulled up a Reanimate. And that 2/2 Rogue might be fine to put some blocking pressure, or maybe even swing in and try and gain some card advantage that way, using Devyn's own deck against him. Reanimate would be pretty painful here, but I don't know. I think I like the Reanimate more than Dance of the Dead. Mainly because Dance of the Dead would keep Bobby locked down for the next turn, and he wouldn't be able to play out the Liliana the Veil. But let's see what he has in mind. He's got 3 cards in hand. Maybe even just Liliana to sack and try and bait out 2 damage from the Mutavault. Bobby being pensive as ever as he decides on a play. And he's going to opt for Dance of the Dead, which is going to bring the Robber back. And it's going to get +1/+1 and swings in at Devyn for 3 damage, bringing him down to 17. And should pull a top card off Devyn's library for it. Devyn has more cards in hand than Bobby, because Bobby mulled down to 5. However, I guess they forgot the Robber trigger. But we're going to move on to Devyn's turn, and Devyn's going to play his land for turn. So exciting. Especially when it's red deck, because they don't always get to play their land for turn. But here's a Frenzied Goblin And Mutavolt's going to crash in, equalizing the damage, bringing Bobby down to 15. And another card exiled under the Bone Curry. Now Bobby is going to have to spend 2 mana to untap that rogue. Robber of the Rich. It's a 3/3. And unfortunately, because of the Frenzied Goblin, it can't even do blocking duty right now. So Bobby has 3 cards in hand. And he can't play any of them. 1 card is going to get exiled. Devyn takes 3, bring him down to 14. But there's a Firebolt. And that is a juicy target. And Bobby is going to mark the damage. And is he going to play it? It's a sorcery, so may as well do it now. And he's going to Firebolt the Bowmat Courier, bringing it to death and keeping those cards exiled forever. But Bobby still has to manage that 3 damage coming at him from the Frenzied Goblin and the Mutavault. And there is a juicy draw. It's a strip mine. But Devyn has other plans. Here's Koth. Koth of the Hammer, making a 4/4 mountain and swinging it at Bobby down to 10. Now Bobby is locked on lands because he has to pay the 2 mana to untap his Robber of the Rich every turn. I guess they're trying to figure out damage, or if Bobby wants to untap the Robber of the Rich. But it's still it's going to his turn. Hasn't even been his untap step. So, Bobby deciding. And he's deep in the tank. That tank. He's going to keep the Robber of the Rich tapped and draw for turn. Swamp. But that Koth is going to come in for another 5 damage next turn with that Frenzied Goblin. And Bobby doesn't have any blockers. He's got Reanimate. He's got Liliana. He's got Life and Death. I suppose what he could do, he could probably... Okay, yeah, here we go. So he's going to make him sacrifice the Frenzied Goblin. Now he could reanimate it and bring the Frenzied Goblin back onto his field and chump block to only take 1 damage instead of 4 from the Koth. But Devyn draws for turn. Here's a land. Still has that Strip Mine in hand. So the Strip Mine's going to bust up the mountain. He's going to pay 1. Pull out a Rakdos Cackler with Unleash. Animate the Mutavault. +1 the Koth. He's gonna +1 the Koth? Yeah, he's gonna +1 the Koth. Untap his mountain. And now Koth will ultimate next turn, meaning that all of his mountains will be able to tap and deal 1 damage. Unfortunately, Rakdos Cackler does not have haste, but he's still crashing in for 6 damage at Bobby, ignoring the Liliana. And Bobby drops down to 4. He's got 1 turn to come up with some kind of answer. But Reanimate and Life and Death are too painful for him to deal with. He's got to figure out a way to deal with the Koth and the creatures, but he says, nope, I can't do it. There's nothing in my deck that'll do it. Well, that's it for us today, but make sure you hit that like button, the notification bell, the subscribe button, and hey, you can even check us out on Instagram. And if you like the content and you want to support it, you can check us out on Patreon too and kick me a few bucks that way. But until next time, may all your packs be fat.